Good evening, everybody. This is Chris Sofield, bucksPAC.com. Appreciate everybody joining us this evening. It is now 7 o'clock. Good evening, everybody. This is Chris Sofield from bucksPAC.com. We have a good-sized audience tonight. I will speak for a few minutes, discuss the political climate that is going on in PA01, Bucks County, an area that bucksPAC.com covers as the conservative super PAC for PA01 in Bucks County and the Liberty of Montgomery County. Appreciate everybody joining us tonight. We do have a few people on the call, so thank you very much for joining bucksPAC.com. Appreciate you getting on the phone call tonight. Interesting week that we've just lived through, and we will continue to live through that. The battle will continue, and it will be for the soul of America. Joe Biden says he's fighting for the soul of America, man in a party that does not care about any souls in America. So I'm going to read something that I found very interesting on the Internet. It is a letter addressed to Joe Biden. Dear presumptive President-elect Joseph Robinette Biden, after AP, the Associated Press, CNN, and the mainstream media decided you won, you made your presidential acceptance speech on Saturday night. I listened to it, I watched it, and I understand that during your presidential acceptance speech, you were calling for the unity of President Trump's supporters. I remember 4 years ago, our President Trump also called for unity. I remember how congressional members of your Democratic Party responded by boycotting his inauguration. I remember how you and your Democratic Party cheated and used the greatest law enforcement institution of this country to spy on our President Trump's campaign. Sir, I remember how you and your Democratic Party created a fake Russian dossier to try and impeach our President Trump. I remember how your Speaker of the House ripped up my President Trump's beautiful State of the Union speech on national TV. I remember how you and your Democratic Party tried to impeach my President Trump over a Ukraine phone call. You accused my President Trump of pay to play. And then we come to find out, Joe, it was really you and your son Hunter. I remember how you and your Democratic Party blamed President Trump over a pandemic that he had nothing to do with. I remember how you and your Democratic Party encouraged rioting and looting and the murder of innocent bystanders of our great United States of America. I remember how you and your Democratic Party used the media to spread lie after lie about my President Trump. I remember how you and your Democratic Party stole the election from my President Trump. This Trump supporter will be giving you the same respect over the last 4 years that you gave my President Trump. And that is unsigned, unknown, but out there on the Internet. And it really hits to the point of where we're at with this past election and where we need to go, because this battle does continue. Resistance does not work just one way. Resistance works both ways. And our resistance movement will do it the legal way. We will do the thing where we will go through the courts. We won't go out and burn and loot and murder as the Antifa of the Democratic Party did and will continue to do and will never be denounced by the Democratic Party. If we actually had some good reporters who were out on the beat, they would be asking presumptive President-elect Joseph Robinette Biden each and every time, when will you denounce Antifa? When will you denounce them? That should be a question that should be asked on a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday and a Monday by a good beat reporter who is covering Joseph Biden. Just like for 4 years we had to listen to those same beat reporters ask President Trump to denounce the KKK, to denounce David Duke, and he did each and every time, and then they would never report it. Fortunately, we have it on tape, we have it on video, and he does it. And people who actually get involved, they get involved to the point where they see that it was denounced. So this is where we are, coming up on 1 week after the election. This is Chris Sofield on bucksPAC.com. I thank the people that have joined me this evening, and we are available on the internet. We're on bucksPAC.com. We also have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter handle. We keep a calendar, polls, surveys, and we keep information on political candidates who call themselves Republicans but fall short. A couple of things that I note as the presumptive president-elect Joseph Robinette Biden spoke was that we've already had Mitt Romney, 1 senator, and 6 congresspeople who have congratulated this presumptive president-elect, and there should be no reason. The one thing we have with our Republicans is they are not fighting to make sure that this election goes the Republican way. We had not one incumbent Republican lose an election, whether a senator or a congressman. All those incumbents won. They should be rallying behind President Trump, and they should be rallying to make sure that this election, the votes are counted correctly for people who are citizens to vote, for people who are registered to vote, for people that are alive. And these are the people that are Republican incumbents, are Republican congresspeople, our senators should be speaking up, and they are not. They are being very quiet. So it's been very interesting, a little frustrating, but we keep the information and the battle continues on bucksPAC.com. That is my opening statement. And I really appreciate everybody staying on the line. I didn't hear any snoring, so it's been very nice to be able to have that statement ready to speak about that. But the battle does continue. Al Gore in the year 2000, he ran that court case for 37 days, and he had less reason to run that court case, and he had actually conceded on the night of the election and then took back his concession speech. Could you imagine if President Trump had conceded and then took back his concession speech? That would have drove the Democrats crazy, as he's been driving them crazy for 4 years. Here on bucksPAC.com, we have a conference call every other Monday night. We will keep that schedule through the end of the year. But I do appreciate some of my friends being on the phone call. I can see who joins on the phone call, so thank you very much. If anybody wishes to ask any questions, just speak up. When you do ask a question, when you finish, just say over, or if you're saying a statement, just say your statement and say over, and then that way somebody will know that they can speak up without stepping on your statement or question. So I'll open the floor up to any questions or statements. Over.
Hey, Chris. This is Dave. I just want to say thanks for putting this together and putting the effort into it. So we'll be tuning into this stuff. And I know you put a lot of effort in the last couple of campaigns against Fitzpatrick. So anyway, just want to say thanks, and glad you're doing it. We'll be here.
Thank you very much, David. You didn't say over, but I'll jump on your your thanks.
Yeah, right. Over. Sorry. Excuse me.
with a you're welcome. Over.
Hi, Chris. This is Fran Howler. I just wanted to ask you, do you, from what I've been reading things online about this supposed computer quote-unquote glitch, and Sidney Powell, General Flynn's attorney, had said that there is a computer program scorecard, the hammer. I'm not computer savvy, but actually what it was doing was switching votes. Do you think that happened? Can we find out if that happened in Bucks County?
Peggy Boudin.
what's the impact the other states? I mean, this is something I was always skeptical about, how they were so sure that Joe Biden was going to win, and I said they must have a cheating mechanism that they feel is foolproof, and I think that it's linked to this computer program. Over.
Fran, thank you very much for that question. And I know as much information as you know. I do love the fact that Cindy Powell is on the case when it comes to that. She is a fantastic attorney. She's the right person. And I do know I have a computer person that's on the line, and Andrew might have some insight on that. So I'd be happy to turn that over to Andrew Schechter if he wishes to speak about that, or if he has any inside information when it comes to the glitches that are on there. Over.
I guess you asked for my input. This is Andrew. There are a lot of things going down, and I don't know what the president's working on right now, but in Pennsylvania, the big issue right now is the illegal after 8 p.m. Election Day ballots that were sanctioned only by the governor and the State Department. And not by the legislature, which is illegal and unconstitutional. If we trash every ballot that was put in the system after 8 p.m. Election Day, even if you miss a few, Trump wins by a landslide. The other is the issue of fraud, using fraudulent ballots and actually putting people in with different ages, different deceased people, different ballots that are duplicated. We've seen this both in people who've gone to the polls and been told they've already voted, yet they never sent out for a mail-in ballot, as well as just random names that have come up. I know Gabe Keller out in Pittsburgh has been doing a lot of research in that regard and turning his information in. There's a lot of duplication in that, and I think they're leaving a lot of those in there. I think there's a lot of fraudulent ballots and a lot that came in after the fact because they were allowed to not be postmarked, which I think is probably illegal as well, because how can you determine when the ballot arrives if they're not postmarked? So there's a lot going on. I mean, it really is. I was actually considering, putting up, starting a class action against the state for the 8 p.m. issue. I don't know if Trump's getting involved in that or not. I'd love to have a connection good enough to find out if that's happening. If not, we should do that on our own. Just get a bunch of people together. I'm sure we can find an attorney willing to fight that. But that's another option. I think if we win that one, we win Pennsylvania, and the other states are much closer than we are, so it'd be a lot easier to defeat those other states. But I think it's just like it was in 2016. It's pretty much up to us. It's up to the supporters of Donald Trump. And in 2016, it was the delegates that got on the bandwagon and pulled the vote. I think it's up to us to go and go up against this thing. If we're going to defeat it, we have to come as the people, not just as the president, because the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, sadly, look at us as the peons and don't mean a hill of crap. And look at the stock market. It's just gone through the roof since Biden was put in. Basically said Biden's going to be the president. That shows volumes. I mean, that is just unbelievable. And that's the Republicans, the Democrats. It's the deep state taking back what was not rightly theirs. And that's why we, the people, us, the voters, need to fight back. And if anybody is interested and can help and wants to do that, I certainly would love to be privy to it, but it's something that needs to be done on very short order, and we can't be conflicting with what Trump's doing either. So we need an insight into that, and I just don't know who that might be. Over.
Andrew, thank you very much for that insight, and that is a very valid point you said. We are talking about computer glitches and the fact that the Democrats are being very savvy about this. But to be honest, they're just doing good old electioneering and cheating when it comes to putting the votes in. So this is Chris again from bucksPAC.com, just to make sure people know where to find us and how to find us. One of the things I heard today, and I'll put that out there to lighten up the mood a little bit, but this was from JFK's father. So Mr. Kennedy, who financed John Kennedy's run in 1960, got him elected. He's attributed a quote to Mr. Kennedy where he says that, "I am not above paying for an election, but I'm truly not going to overpay for a landslide." And that's where we're at. The Democrats knew exactly how many votes they needed to get. They knew exactly how many fraudulent ballots to manufacture and produce, and that's what they did. In the old days of Philadelphia, they would have what they called the 745 ghost voters, and around 745, the Democrats would look at the rolls, see who voted, see who didn't vote, and then they would just start processing all of the people that didn't show up because they knew who they would vote for if they showed up. And that's where the dead voters come in, because sometimes they didn't know those people had passed away during the year, but they were still on the books. That's the situation we truly are at, and they've just upped their game a little bit by being able to use ways to manufacture these votes a lot easier. And one way that they were able to manufacture these votes a lot easier is by changing our election laws in 2019 to Act 77, our state Republican in control House in Harrisburg. They were rolled by the Democrats. Tom Wolf started it by changing the voting machines. Then the deal was made by the Republicans and Democrats in Harrisburg that the Republicans fought so that we would no longer have single party button to be able to vote straight party. Well, the Democrats gave in on that because they knew with the new ballot that wasn't really going to be an issue. People had to fill in the little circles now. There wasn't a button. There wasn't a lever that was straight party. So the Democrats gave up nothing. The Republicans gave up Pennsylvania, and that's what happened here in Pennsylvania. Over.
My name's Carl. This is my first one of these calls. I'm calling from Chalfont. Can you hear me okay, Chris?
Yes, I can, Carl. Thank you very much for joining us.
Sure. I have two questions. The first is, were there any irregularities that you're aware of reported in Bucks County during the election? And my second question is regarding ghost voters, dead voters.
Yes.
Is there any system in place that at least scrubs the voter rolls in Bucks County? And if not, how come?
Okay. Carl, that's a great question. That's a great question. And, here on bucksPAC.com, we do try to find out answers on these. And the one answer is Act 77 in 2019. And it also goes back to voter ID, which was passed. And I believe that was in 2015 that was passed. And one of the requirements of voter ID was that the election rolls would be cleaned up, and then everybody would have to have a Pennsylvania-issued voter ID to be able to vote. Well, of course, a Democratic judge threw that out, and it did go up, and I believe at one point, and I'm not an attorney, and for some reason that all seemed to go away, but I thought at one point the Republicans actually won that case, and voter ID was required. Then I think once again it went up to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and they threw it all out again. And then the Republicans just let it lie, beaten on the side of the road. It's never brought up again. Voter ID should be required, and in that same bill was the cleaning of the rolls. The problem with the Republicans in Harrisburg and pretty much all rhinos is as soon as you talk about cleaning up the rolls, then they start being called a racist, and then you start being called that you're suppressing the vote. But all you're doing is suppressing the vote of people that shouldn't be on the rolls, people that have died, people that have moved out of state, people who shouldn't be able to vote because they're incarcerated. It's pretty simple stuff, but as soon as you leave all those people on there, all those people seem to be able to vote even if they're incarcerated, if they moved to a different state, or if they died, or if they just didn't show up for an election. I mean, we have situations where presidential election is usually the most attended election of any of the cycles, and you'll have 60% of the people come out. Wisconsin, I saw figures that they normally would have anywhere from 65 to 70% of the people vote in a presidential election. And in this past election, Wisconsin had 89% turnout. That's almost a 20% swing. And, I mean, I know people hate Donald Trump. And I know people love Donald Trump, but to get an additional 20% election swing is pretty amazing.
Chris, this is Carl again. Not to interrupt, but I think I saw a human rights lawyer who's working with Trump at the national level comment yesterday that on that very statistic from Wisconsin that economists and statisticians have opined already that Wisconsin phenomenon is not only a statistical improbability but a statistical impossibility. Over.
Yes, and it's a good point because the final point I was going to make on that was the fact that Barack Obama, who was very inspirational, and he got nowhere near 89% when he ran. He only pushed it to 70%. And you would think if anybody was going to bring people in, it would be somebody like Barack Obama. It would not be somebody like Joe Biden, who was hiding in his basement and not going to any rallies. And even when he went to a rally, it was a parking lot with, a half a dozen cars. It is an improbability that Wisconsin had that kind of turnout without the election fraud that has been put upon us. Over.
Hey, it's Andy again.
Yes, Andy.
And I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I'm also going to make some points. I think that it's in some cases closer. There was definite fraud and significant fraud. Now, I think in Pennsylvania, if you go on fraud alone, you're not going to win the ballot. Which is why I'm saying that if Trump doesn't go after the 8 p.m. deadline, which was illegal and unconstitutional, I can't see how any court would allow that. But if you go by vote alone, we might pull 10,000, 20,000 votes, but we need 50, which is going to be a problem. The problem is there are a lot of people that truly hate Donald Trump. It's sad. I've been lambasted by many of them just for my support of Donald Trump. And they're evil. I mean, they are, they're just awful people. But there's the far left, the far right. There's the city versus the rural. But in Philadelphia, for instance, you've got 90% vote for Joe Biden, which seems like a statistical improbability. It's just way too high, considering the number of people that don't like Joe Biden necessarily, and the number of Republicans that are in that and to push it for the Republican Party in Philadelphia. Normally that runs about 60. I think it was 65 or 70% in 2016 for Obama rather in 2008. But I think it's closer than a lot of Trump supporters would want, because you look at the ballots. There's a lot of ballots where people only voted for Trump, and a lot are saying, "Oh, that must have been the fraud." By the same token, there's a lot of people that just didn't want Trump in there, and a lot of them are Republicans, sadly. So I think it's closer than we think, but there's still fraud, and it's still we still could win it. We got to get Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the big one, and that's the only way we can get Pennsylvania is to kill the votes that came in after 8 p.m. on Election Day, which is going to be a tough call, but it is a constitutional fact that only the state legislature can dictate election law. How in the hell can we have those votes come in after 8 p.m. on Election Day? I just don't get it. That's why I said that's the one we really need to push. The other states, Trump can probably win by just looking at the voter fraud, looking at the rolls. We're also going through rolls. We have a couple of friends in various counties across the state that we're looking at, particularly out in Allegheny County, where they're actually comparing the voter registration rolls with people with the current addresses to make sure that people actually still live at those addresses. And we're finding a lot of incongruencies there. So there are options, but again, I don't think that alone is enough to pull Pennsylvania. So I don't know how we can do it, but I think we need to push somehow to we need to somehow get to Trump's people. I used to have great contacts, and I really don't so much anymore. But we really need to push that, because I think if we go up against it, I think, again, we as voters should be going up against it. I don't know if we can fight that at that level, but I think we can, because it's our vote. And it's our vote that's being stolen. So I don't see any reason why we can't sue the state for violation of the United States Constitution. So that's my 2 cents. But I think it is closer, and I think we need the big one. That's the big one that would get us the win. And without that, we're going to just see Biden riding for the next 4 years, which not something I want to see. And I'm sure you guys don't either. Over.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Just to remind everybody, we're on bucksPAC.com. This is a bi-monthly conference call every other Monday night. So please invite your friends. You can always, get us through bucksPAC.com. Stay in contact with us, do the surveys, and of course, stay well informed on conservative issues and upcoming Republican events. Andrew, some of the points that you make, and I just pulled up the election map for 2020, and dear to my heart is North Carolina. And North Carolina still has not been called for either person running. I mean, we're we're a week into this, but the real amazing one is Alaska. They still have not called Alaska, for the Trump camp, and that was some of the big problems we had, even on election night when they called Arizona too early, and they, just refused to allow Trump to make it look like he was winning. So it's a lot of problems, and a lot of people are a little bit upset with Fox News, and a lot of people don't even watch the other mainstream media because you just affect your brain. The point that you made, Andrew, and I think it's the most valuable point with Pennsylvania, is yes, our laws were changed by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. That is unconstitutional in the Pennsylvania Constitution, and they changed that law to accept mail-in ballots after Election Day, after 8 p.m., without no postmarks, without no verifying signatures. And that, I almost think, is an easy case for somebody like Cindy Powell or any good attorney to have that all thrown out. It should be enough to correct it, but they were not segregating the votes after 8 p.m. as much as, Judge Alito said that from the U.S. Supreme Court. So, that's just big problems we have. But you would think that's the low-hanging fruit is to get that Pennsylvania Supreme Court, get their knuckles whacked and corrected, because when they changed that law, they wrote law, and that is not the way our Constitution, Pennsylvania or U.S. Constitutions, are written. Over.
Andy, again, I'll make a quick comeback on that just to say that it's good to point out that this U.S. Constitution, because we've got friends down in the Supreme Court, in the U.S. Supreme Court. I think that's where it's going to end up. And if the U.S. Supreme Court says that the state's allowed that the state administrative officers and governors are allowed to change election laws in violation of the U.S. Constitution, I think we've got a bigger problem than just Trump losing an election. I think that's where it's headed, and I think that's why I say that's the key, because if you can prove that the governor of Pennsylvania usurped his authority, overrode the Constitution of the state and of the United States of America, you got a major issue and call for re-election in-person voting with ID. I mean, it's the only thing you can do is have a new election. There's no other way you can do it. If they violated that, you can't tell what votes came in after 8 p.m. because they mixed them up intentionally.
Yeah.
Then, that should be just thrown out. Over.
So this is Chris again, and from bucksPAC.com. So thank you very much, Andrew. And yes, we're in agreement. I know this audience that we have are in agreement that we feel that we was robbed. As simple as that. And we do need some good attorneys, and the Trump campaign is vowing that they will fight it to take it to a Supreme Court that should rule in our favor. You can never count on John Roberts. He's been a huge disappointment, and case after case that he's the swing vote. He's a big problem, but currently we have 4 conservatives, 4 progressives, and John Roberts in the 9-person Supreme Court. So we should do well. to be able to win that case. And I might have just did those numbers wrong. I think we have 5 conservatives, 3 progressives, and John Roberts. So even without John Roberts anymore, because Amy's on the court now, we should do well when it comes to the United States Supreme Court. We just have to get that issue up there. And, you know, we're a few good people out here on a phone call, but we do need to reach out to our Congress people, and we do need to reach out to our various PACs that are supplying funds to Donald's defense fund. And I know our PAC doesn't have not set up anything to specifically channel money that way, but I do know some PACs have. But, you know, right now we're kind of a startup organization, so we don't have the type of funds to be able to do that at this point. Think about it and donate to bucksPAC.com. That would be great. Tell your friends to join us every other Monday night on this type of conference call so we can talk about those issues. I think we did answer some questions for Carl, for Fran, so hopefully, you know, we're helpful that way. I will open this up. Normally we finish the calls at 8 o'clock, so we do have few more minutes. If anybody has any other questions, feel free to speak up. Over.
This is Peggy Boudin. I think it was Andy who was looking for some legal connection in Pennsylvania. I do have the name of a person who's working on Trump's legal team in Bucks County. His name is James Harvat. I have his phone number if you would like to take it down and raise some of those issues that you alluded to in Allegheny County. They're trying to build a strong case, and every incident added to their list will strengthen that case. And he would be glad to hear from you. I've already passed his information on to a friend of mine who had her elderly parent in a nursing home with dementia fill out a ballot. They came around and had her fill out a ballot, and she was not really competent to do that. So they're adding that case to the list. So, Andy, if you would like that number, I can give that to you.
Yeah, Over. Sure. Was that Horvath? Is that his last name?
Yes, Harvat, James.
Harvat?
Yes, Harvat.
Okay, got it. So phone number you said?
484-626-3680.
Perfect. All right, got it. Thanks.
You're welcome. Over.
Thank you, Peggy. Really appreciate that information. Peggy and I go back a couple of years now, and really appreciate all the hard work she's helped in various campaigns. So really was heartened to see you join us on the call tonight. So thank you very much. I know Fran and David Haller have been very helpful, and Andrew and I go back about 4 years now. So it's very nice to have friends on this call. Carl is new, and so I do appreciate the new people also. So, you know, as we do these calls, we will try to stay in contact with everybody, try to keep everybody informed on what's happening. What we're looking at currently is a presidential race that we need to correct, and you know, any prayers and hopes we can have that corrected before December 14th, when all the elections need to be certified. Then the battle starts, and the battle continues into an off-year election. And most people don't vote in off-year elections. When you get 13 or 15 or 17% turnouts on an off-year election, the problem you have is those off-year elections are, if they're row offices in the counties or if they're judgeships. And a lot of times they are the judges, and that is why we currently have a Pennsylvania Supreme Court judgeship that is controlled by the Democrats. And we see now what they will do, because Democrats are not opposed to legislating from the bench, where Republicans are more conservative and constitutionalist, and they don't legislate from the bench. I'll probably end this little conversation with a quote from Margaret Thatcher, great conservative warrior, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. And the quote she has is, "It is the slow ratcheting of socialism." And that quote just explains how in her country, the progressives, the liberals, the party that is to the left have no problem getting into office and moving as far left as they can. And when the conservatives get back in office, they only ratchet it back 1 or 2 notches, not the 6 or 7 notches that the socialists, the leftists, and in our case here in the United States, the Democrats, are prone to do. And we see that because what was abnormal 40 years ago is very well accepted by the Democrats now. This is not the same party of JFK, and John F. Kennedy would be rolling in his grave, a grave that he was actually placed in by a Democrat socialist, Lee Harvey Oswald. And it's just amazing where the Democratic Party has gone. And currently we have Joe Biden, who, if he serves 4 years, I would be quite amazed. And he's already said he will only serve 1 term, but I don't see him getting through 1 year with the pack of socialists that have propped him up and have allowed him to be dragged out on stage, and the mistakes he makes, the gaffes he makes, but he's their puppet. So he will be the puppet in chief. And that's where we're at. So if anybody else has any other comments, but I'm going to kind of leave it at that. I appreciate everybody showing up tonight, everybody with their input, and just all the support that you folks give us. We really appreciate the effort and, what we're able to do with bucksPAC.com and what we're able to do with our consultant business, which is called Republican, and that's to consult and get conservatives to run for office, and that's what we will be working on in 2021 as we go into the spring election season. We just need to finish up this presidential election season right now, and that should be finished up by December 14th. So with that, I'll thank everybody, and if anybody else had any other comments, feel free to speak up. Over. Well, it doesn't seem like anybody wants to speak up, so I see everybody still on the phone, so I will just, conclude the call tonight with a very hearty thank you very much for joining us, and the battle continues, and thank you very much for joining us on bucksPAC.com. So good night, my friends.
Thank you, Chris. Good night.
Thanks, Chris. Good night.
Thank you, Fran. David and Andrew and Carl. Thank you very much, everybody.
Have a good night.
Good night.